right, everybody, we are back with another RAMP Careers Daily Update. Today, I am joined with Mitch and Manoj. Boys, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Danny.
Wonderful, wonderful. Mitch, you got to say it. You got to say it. It's
It's
Thursday. What does that
Friday.
mean?
It's Friday. You got one more day. Make it through.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so we've got a great topic today, something that we need some opinions on. So you all are going to have to comment in the comment sections on this, but we were talking about this before the recording and we were discussing is sales actually the best career path to go into right out of college? Is it the best first job you can ask for? Mitch, I know we're probably biased here, but what are your thoughts on this?
Maybe a little bit, but no, I think look, objectively, I think it is one of the best career paths you can go into outside of, let's say you're really dedicated to a certain passion of yours, right? Whether it's maybe you want to go into like the medical field, maybe you're really passionate about investment banking or consulting, right? Like those are all paths. But typically what happens is folks graduate and they kind of just wind up into some career when they start applying online. Statistics show that 50% of folks end up in sales at some point after graduating. And I think it's one of the best careers that you could end up in right away. I'll give you my kind of tangible reasons. We can talk about some of the intangibles here in a second. But first off the bat, high starting base salary, right? Which is what most people are looking at, right? Like, let's be real here. SDRs can be making 80,000 easily at most tech companies. And then I've seen SDRs be breaking 100K in their first year just with the commission structure if they crush their number. What's even better is after year one, that pay ramp continues to go up, right? So it's a high growth rate of pay as well. So there's other high paying jobs out there, right? You could go be an engineer, right? And sit in CAD all day long. But, typically those careers level off or those pays level off. So sales, will go up and up and up. The other thing is what's great about it is you don't need a technical background, right? You could go into like engineering, you could go into coding, you could go into medicine. But all of those require you to plan ahead of time. You have got to be studying that through school. What's great about sales is you can graduate from any major, journalism, business school. You can be like health and life sciences. You can literally graduate from any major. And as long as you can talk to people, you can jump into sales and learn on the fly, which I think is amazing. And then lastly, it sets you up for a lot of different career options afterwards. You don't have to stay in sales, but it gives you such a good base foundation of how does a company operate? How does a company make money? How do you talk with customers and do a customer facing role on top of getting paid a lot of money? So in my opinion, it is one of the best starting careers that you could go into. What do you guys think? Obviously, we're all biased here, but
Well,
anything I missed there on the...
Well, let me give you the perspective of somebody who did not want to go into sales right off the bat and could not have imagined myself in sales right off the bat. So when I graduated the finance degree. I was thinking IB track, consulting track maybe, but really I was gearing up for finance. And had the financial collapse not happened in 08, 09, really starting 07, I probably would have wound up in New York at a bank and would not have experienced sales. When I got into the interview at Groupon, I really didn't picture it as a sales role. I was just so passionate about Groupon that I knew I could sell it and I knew I could convince others or help others see the value in Groupon. I learned through that role how great of a first job it actually was. I got to learn a ton about myself. I got to learn a ton about others. I learned how to communicate at a much deeper and better level than I ever had at college. And yes, the money is great if you make it work. If you're a high performing salesperson, you will certainly make money. But I didn't anticipate how fun the environment was, how you always are thinking on your feet. There's always a new challenge. There's always a new person to talk to. And you really get to learn about other people and broaden your experience so much more than I think in many other jobs where you're either crunching numbers or working on design or working on code. This is really an engaging role. So I think there's a lot of great things about it.
For sure. And I think one thing that we should note here, because it might come up in the comments, right, is that a consulting or like an iBanking role, in a lot of ways, people would say that's sales as well, right? It's a little bit different than like a direct sales job. So Manoj, having gone the iBanking route and having a lot of consulting experience in your past, I mean, kind of compare and contrast these for us, right? A lot of folks will go that route, high achieving, dedicated, motivated individuals will go kind of that route as well. And then there's kind of the entry level tech sales route. What are your thoughts here? Are Danny and I crazy? You've seen
No,
both.
I don't think you guys are crazy. I think it's a great first job, right? Because the challenge is that there's only so many jobs that are as high volume as sales. There's just the sheer need for salespeople from a very practical perspective. It's more likely that you can land a job in sales than you can land a job in some niche space, right? Call it consulting or call it something else. And even in those jobs, there's always a sales element. When you really think about it, whether you work in consulting, whether you work in banking, or at least M&A in the conventional sense, or you're a lawyer, after a while, let's say you're year 10, year 12, year 13 into it, even those jobs become a BD role. At some point, you're going to be responsible for pitching business, bringing in business. I say the same thing about CPAs too. After a while, let's say you buy into a partnership, where are you going to get clients from, right? So you're going to have to sell over time. Why not learn that from the very outset? That's the benefit. The only thing that I would, and it's not a caution against, but the only thing that you would have to do out of your own volition and interest is to develop your analytical chops. That's the one piece that sometimes goes missing in sales, especially if you look at a lot of the old school sales professionals, right? It's changing over time. Most of it is because there's a lot of tools today. There's a big focus on being data oriented and being metrics driven. Whereas in the past, you could just like hide behind a lot of stuff, right? So I think that's the missing piece. If you want to really develop a stellar background, great place to start is sales because it forces you to learn a set of skills that I think are incredibly transferable, but then you would have to supplement it with the analytical thinking because I don't think it naturally presents itself in sales. To some extent it might, but for the most part, that's not a muscle that you're necessarily exercising, and you're not really given the platform to exercise that muscle as a frontline SDR or a BDR, quite honestly, because you have so much process being pushed on you. You really don't even have as many opportunities to be analytical. But if you can learn that, I know, Mitch, you had to, right? I mean, some of it was forced on you. Some of it, I think you're a naturally curious person, but we had to build our own forecast. We had to build our own projections and then back it up at the same time. So all of that modeling, I think you learn, but sometimes people don't. I think it's a great place to start, man. I feel like more people should, to the extent possible, consider a career in sales because it's very, very transferable.
There's a lot of intangibles here, right? We've been talking about some of the perks, right? The pay, the companies that you can join. But Manoj, you touched on a lot of them, right? How to sell. It's a skill that you're going to need literally throughout your entire life. How to deal with customers. I think I see a lot of folks that come out of school not knowing what to do. They've never really put themselves out there before. They end up in sales by chance and they just blossom with confidence after that. And they feel like they can do anything because they're once you get into sales, you're getting rejected every day. You're having to like think on your feet and talk to people, sometimes, hundreds of people every week. After that, you come out of there with like, okay, this isn't that scary, right? I can do this. I can hear no a lot and keep moving forward. I think that's one of the biggest perks, the kind of the intangible perks is just the confidence that you get after doing a customer facing role that can be brutal some days, but pays off at the end of the week, at the end of the month.
Where let's say that you do that for a few years and you say, okay, I've learned enough. I don't want to necessarily pursue just a career in prospect facing or customer facing sales. With the skills that you've picked up, where else do you think you can take and apply those sets of skills? Like I don't want to call them exit opportunities because it's not a good way of thinking about. I see a lot of people in there. Other professional consulting or finance think about.
I want out.
Yeah, but like, what can you think? Well, what about sales though? Let's say you do it for a few years, you're an SDR, AE, what next?
Yeah, look, I struggled with this early in my career too. Did I really want to stick with sales, and do I really want to stick with sales? And I think an element of my job now or my career path now will always be selling, but I started my own business, so I was able to kind of exit a quote unquote, but take elements from that. But I think more practically, if you're working in an organization, the career paths for sales are robust. You don't have to stick with sales right away. You get to know the customer and how to interact with customers at such an elite level through sales and through selling that you could easily take that skill and apply it to potentially a product role, a product marketing role, marketing roles, customer success. So that's post-sale roles. And there are several other tracks. Operations at some companies are very close to sales. Some tracks that are just really close enough to sales. And you will come with a perspective that's invaluable because you know the customer so well. So I think those roles are always going to be open to you. Mitch, what do you think? Are there other roles that you think could be great for salespeople to jump into right after, I guess, jumping out of selling specifically?
Yeah, I mean, you named the big ones. We probably should do a whole episode on this and go into some details because the thing is, which I did not realize at all until I actually got into the professional world is there's so many career paths out there that you never learned about in school, right? Like I was in the business school. They don't teach you what sales operations is. They don't teach you what sales enablement is. They don't teach you what, marketing ops is. You don't know those even exist as a potential. until you get in there. So I think it's hard sometimes for someone to see themselves going into sales and then what does the next 5 years look like? Am I going to be making cold calls the next 5 years? Maybe that doesn't appeal to somebody, but sales enablement might, or marketing, or product marketing, product development. I mean, entrepreneurship, Danny, you kind of wrote it off there for a second, but I know so many folks, ourselves included, that want to start their own company, do their own thing. Sales is a great starting point for that, right? You get to see, I mean, that's the most important thing of entrepreneurship is getting money through the door. And if you can't do that, you can't start a business. So I think there's lots of paths. I think we should do a whole episode just on laying those out for folks, just because I think it's nice to see the path forward sometimes before you start on your way.
Okay, I think that's a great place to wrap. We'll have to do a follow-up episode on all of the specifics around the career paths that we outlined here too. So check back for more on that. But for Mitch and Manoj, this is Danny with another Ramp Careers Daily Update. See you guys.